Delaying Halo Infinite to 2021 was a very difficult choice for Xbox leadership, but it is absolutely the right one. It requires a whole lot of entrepreneurial courage to do what they just did, as I can't think of a single other instance in video game history where a single console's long-touted flagship day one launch game got delayed at the 11th hour. Yes, the hole that Master Chief's long-awaited return leaves in the Series X's launch lineup is a big one, and it does weaken the short-term case for buying a Series X at launch, but console generations are long, and the damage that a definitely rushed and possibly disappointing new Halo game would have had the Xbox launched with the game this fall, as it continues to rebuild its image, would have been far worse. First, let's look at where this leaves the Xbox Series X as it prepares to launch this November. The big launch title is now arguably not a game at all. It's a service, Xbox Game Pass. Well, that and the Xbox Series upgraded but not yet optimized version of Cyberpunk 2077, which will be marketed with Xbox. I mean, it's fair to argue that there isn't much reason to buy an Xbox Series X right at launch anymore. Microsoft itself hasn't announced any other brand new day one first-party launch titles, instead offering Series X optimized upgrades for Gears 5, Forza Horizon 4, and Gears Tactics. All of the other first-party heavyweights are early in development, such as Forza Motorsport, and smaller second-party exclusives like Scorn and the Medium probably aren't going to move the needle for a fence-sitting console buyer this fall. But Phil Spencer was clearly prepared for this possibility. He explicitly told me back in late March that no single game, not even Halo Infinite, would delay the Series X launch in the face of the coronavirus pandemic. And now he has walked the walk on that statement. Furthermore, there is one major card left for Microsoft to potentially play to help swing the vote: price. In that same interview, Spencer told me that Microsoft would, quote, remain agile on the price of the Series X, suggesting that it could and might undercut the PS5's price in order to make its console more appealing in the marketplace and avoid the pricing debacle that helped dig the Xbox a pretty darn deep hole at the beginning of this generation. Now, it's important to not forget that the Series X is the more powerful console, so if you combine that with the price advantage, if that's how it works out, plus a free trial of Game Pass that will inevitably come in every single Series X box, that would allow Series X buyers to play hundreds of games out of the box at launch without spending another dime, and that would be an enviable position for Microsoft to be in, even without Halo. That said, it has been a very publicly rough few weeks for Microsoft, and I can imagine some frayed nerves inside the company. First, Halo Infinite's campaign debut back at the Xbox Game Showcase was very highly criticized for not looking up to snuff, to the point that developer 343 Industries had to acknowledge the negative reaction in an update on Halo Waypoint. Then, days later, an Irish toy retailer leaked the news that Halo Infinite's multiplayer component was going to be free to play and support up to 120 frames per second, which robbed the 343 team of their moment to tell their full next-gen multiplayer story. Then, last week, Apple roadblocked Microsoft on Project xCloud and their game streaming plans on Apple iOS devices. After that, the Series X controllers somehow found their way into regular consumers' hands in stores, revealing Microsoft's long-rumored Project Lockhart that we now know, thanks to the packaging of those controllers, to be named as the Series X. And of course, that robbed Microsoft of the typical pomp and circumstance that they, I'm sure, would have wanted in revealing a new console. And then we got this Halo Infinite delay. I'll tell you, as a longtime Halo fan, I actually actively applaud this delay since it was deemed necessary. First and foremost, for the physical and mental well-being of the hundreds of developers over at 343 and other support studios. Now, from a business standpoint, Microsoft just can't afford a bad or even just disappointing Halo game. not after 5+ years, not on their new next generation console, and not after Halo 5 already wounded Halo's once glowing reputation with a not so well received single player campaign. Remember too that Infinite now is no longer going to be going toe-to-toe with fellow juggernaut first-person shooter Call of Duty. That's a good thing for a Halo franchise that is looking for some space in order to reintroduce and reestablish itself. And of course, for the actual game itself, 343 now gets more time to implement ray tracing, number one, which is arguably next-gen's most visually obvious new feature. They'll integrate that hopefully right into the shipping version of the game rather than as an update after the fact. The art and the tech teams will get more time to work on things both that they'd already wanted to improve, as well as address the criticisms that came up when the public negatively reacted to the game following the Xbox Game Showcase. Numerous other aspects of the game that we haven't even seen yet are going to get extra polish time. I mean, really, you go back to Shigeru Miyamoto's famous adage. It gets thrown around a lot, but it remains true as ever. A delayed game is eventually good, but a rushed game is forever bad. Okay, I suppose patches and updates can make it eventually good, but with Halo and the new gen, you only get one chance to make a first impression. So really, at this point too, what's the difference between launching in March of 2021 versus May of 2021, or even, dare I say it, the 20th anniversary of Halo, November 15th, 2021. So the pressure is off now as far as hitting a big concrete launch date is concerned. To that point, Microsoft need only look at the aforementioned Cyberpunk 2077 for both inspiration and optimism. Cyberpunk is this fall's biggest game. I don't think anybody would really argue that on any platform. And it has suffered multiple publicly announced delays, and yet CD Projekt Red's game has finally entered the home stretch, and at this point, nobody cares or is talking about those delays anymore because the game looks great and plays great based on the previews we got a little earlier this summer. Now, that's not to say that Microsoft is completely blameless in all of this. When you've spent over 2 years pumping up Master Chief's Comeback as the centerpiece of your new console generation's launch, and then you ultimately fail to deliver on that, you're gonna be left with egg on your face. I mean, is this delay an indictment of the project management skills of 343's leadership? Maybe. The final product is going to be the thing that ultimately determines that. But in fairness, making a AAA video game is difficult enough as it is, let alone when it's done on a platform. You're trying to hit a platform that hasn't even launched yet in the form of the Series X, and in the middle of a pandemic that nobody could have seen coming, where everybody's been forced to work from home for the foreseeable future. In the end, though, it may be painful from a marketing and public relations perspective, but the leadership team at Xbox, and no doubt the Microsoft executives above them, they are making the right call here, both for their developers and for the long-term health of the Halo IP. The Series X is bigger than any one game, yes, even Halo, and both the console and the game are hopefully going to be okay. We're definitely going to get a better Halo game out of this than we would had it launched this fall, and hey, look at it this way. We Halo fans have waited 5 years already. What's a few more months? For more on all things Halo and the Xbox Series X, keep it tuned right here to IGN.